Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening, everyone. Today, we are covering some positional masterpieces, the positions which every chess player needs to know, and the situations where it's quite important to play properly, navigate through the middle games well, and many other good beneficial stuff. So, let's get started without further ado. I believe all the technical aspects are fine. It is visible on the stream, so we can get started. The first game which I would like to share with you was played between Dominguez Perez Lanier against Ibragimov. And Dominguez Linus Panier is just American Grandmaster. He was from Cuba originally and moved to the United States not so long ago. And Ibragimov was from Russia, if I'm not mistaken. So the game started with e4, e6, d4, d5, and we have got the French defense with advanced variation with c5. For those who are looking for some kind of action directly against the French defense, I would recommend you to investigate in knight c3 or going for e5 ideas. These two are the most challenging ones, usually, to fight for some kind of advantage. e5 was played, c5 and c3. Knight c6, knight f3, followed by knight e7. Knight e7 is not as a famous continuation compared to others. Let's say we have way more played queen b6 ideas, or going for simply bishop d7 plans as well, and so on. It is quite common, but this is a little bit different scenario. So right after we go for knight f3, black responds with knight e7, and the general idea is to put the knight on f5, go with bishop d7, and maintain pressure on the d4 pawn as much as possible. So we go with knight a3, and it's an interesting approach. Usually white tries to play bishop d3, short castle, and when the time is right to go and attack on the king side. But this time it's a little bit different situation. And the key reason for that is because after knight e7, white plays knight a3 because they want to tuck the knight on c2, meaning that after c takes d4, we can take it back with the pawn. So d4 pawn will be well guarded. After knight a3, black trades it off, and knight f5, knight c2, followed by queen b6. There is a decent amount of pressure on the d4 pawn, and one might just wonder, okay, but how do we keep it protected for a long period of time? And I've seen some people even trying to go for g4 to get rid of this bishop as soon as possible, which is actually a terrible idea, guys, to do, and definitely not recommended, because the moment you try to make it work, then it will weaken the whole king side. Black can try to tuck the knight back on e7, g6 is not recommended. Instead, white just plays bishop d3, which is actually a very nice way to play in the current situation. We challenge the knight on f5, and the best part of it is that black is unable to take the pawn on d4, because at the end of the tray, always be cautious about this idea. White has got bishop b5, say hi to the king, then we grab the queen on d4, and everything looks quite nice. Getting back to it, after bishop d3, black plays bishop d7. For those who are wondering what is going on bishop b4, white definitely can grab the bishop on b4, but that's not the only way to play in the current situation. We can also try to go for king f1, which is not bad either, because since white has started the attack on the king side, g3, king g2, h4, h5 coming, it's not really that bad to have the king located on f1 as well. So, and bishop on b4 looks a little bit stupid. It doesn't do anything at all, and controlling this diagonal is kind of meaningless. After bishop d3, black develops the pieces normally, and here is a castle, followed by a5. And this is a critical moment of the game. Do we go ahead and grab the knight on f5, or we try to play something a little bit differently, such as avoiding it or pushing the pawn forward on g4, or what is the exact approach? Now white decided to take the knight on f5 right away, which is kind of a dubious decision, but it could be good depending on the exact situation. Concrete variations matter a lot. But before we dive into these details, since black has just played bishop d7, isn't it possible to take the pawn on d4? That's a valid question, and actually it is not possible, because right after that happens, let's say knight taking on d4, we can take it back, and when the knight takes back, there is bishop e3. So knight is badly pinned to the queen, and what is black going to do? Knight c2 just doesn't work because we're going to grab the queen, and if black tries to play bishop c5 as the only source of survival, there comes b4. If the bishop takes, we have bishop d4, otherwise the pieces are under attack, and if knight c2, most importantly, we take on c5 with the bishop rather than with the pawn, because if the pawn takes, there will be some intermezzo knight e3, plus attacking the queen, which is going to be quite bad for us. So in the current situation, short castle a5 was played, bishop takes f5, e takes f5. And here we have the diagram in front of us after e takes f5. How should white play in the current situation? For those who are attending, just please let me know what do you think about it, which move do you think is the best for white. I'll give you a couple of seconds. I think it's going to be more than enough, and just tell me what to do, how to proceed further with the white pieces. Seems like we don't have people joined yet at the moment, so it will be just preferable to discuss about it regardless. So let's move on. Here, after e takes f5, white has a couple of options, but the best of all is to bring the knight on e3. Black has got the double pawns along the f file, plus the pawn on d5 is quite weak, so we want to take the advantage of it. But black has this bishop on e6, which on the first glance looks terrible because it's really badly placed. But on the other hand, if we manage to play something like maybe queen d3, maintaining pressure, etc., we can maybe break through. But potentially this bishop is covering up very key squares, and if we try to execute it, black will just take it back with the pawn, and it does look like black is absolutely fine. We're not going to argue here and say that black has the bishop pair advantage or anything like that, because it's definitely going to be very weird to point it out, something similar, but clearly it's not that simple position. Anyhow, after bishop e6, white here goes for a brilliant maneuver, which is g3. The idea is to tuck the knight back on g2, if bishop e7 potentially trade off the dark squared bishops as well, and white is planning to activate the knight on f4 and maybe jumping to h5 as well. That's actually going to be huge in this situation. Right after g3, black plays bishop e7, knight goes back on g2, and we would like to make this trade no doubt. That's the key reason why black plays h6. If you look at this scenario, and we will be capable of going for something like h4, potentially bishop g5, pieces are getting traded, we will get an amazing pawn structure, and this bishop on e6 would look relatively bad. Plus, if the h-pawn gets to g5, h-file is getting opened up, which is not a good news at all. So, after knight g2, h6 was played, that allows white to play h4, covering up all the key aspects, and short castle was played. The next step is quite clear. As long as white maintains the d4 pawn under control, it is important to strike back and go for the kingside attack as well. And here, what exactly is going to happen? After short castle, we play knight f4. If white wants to go for the attack, it is a possibility that at some point white can try knight h5, potential sacrifices on g7. Clearly, at this point, black's only source of counterplay will be towards the queen side, so they bring the rook on c8, potentially trying to double it up and get some attack going, which makes perfect sense. But right after playing this rook c8, white has got rook e1. It is an important move, because after rook c8, black's plan is to play knight b4. The knight can jump on c2, attack the rook, cover up the d4 as well, and if black starts to create some threats, it might be quite deadly for us. On the other hand, a3 looks like the move which needs to be played, but that leads to a4 followed by knight a5, b3, or knight a5, knight c4, and it's going to be quite unpleasant. And a3 will be kind of creating like a hook, which just doesn't work out well for us. We would just prefer to do things a little bit different. Well, so what happens after rook c8? We're going to play rook e1. And the best part of it is that after knight b4, that's why this move is extremely classy, that white can just play rook e2. And without actually moving the pieces away, or a3 inclusion or anything like that, white can just get away with it, which is absolutely amazing. So after playing rook e2, everything is settled. Black here played rook c7 first. Tries to double up the rook and bring the knight on b4, potentially c2, etc. Rook e2, rook c8, and bishop gets on e. Well, the position of the black's rook seems to be nice, but in fact, it doesn't do anything. Black does not have any more of these a5, knight c4 plans. It's already not easy to suggest something for him, while white has a clear idea, and you will see exactly what happened in the game. If any attempt of bringing the knight, let's say on b4, trying to get to the square of c2, it does look like black managed to finally break through. They've activated the knight can jump on c2, or the rook can just tune in, but it's not that easy, because white is going to play knight e1, covering up the c2 square and d3. I know for most of you probably it's such a weird way to play, like why do we go into that defense when we can just once play a3 and settle everything? No, ladies and gentlemen, it's not that easy, because a3 was causing a lot of problems. Now we're covering everything with the pieces. These rooks don't have any good square, maybe c4 maximum, and that's it. So black is trying to play a bit more actively on the flank and bring the queen into the action, because the queen was doing nothing at all. After that, it's time to kick the knight out, and when it goes back, knight d3. As long as we know that black's knight is not coming back to a5, because now it's already misplaced on a6. If it would be on c6, it's a bit different situation, because black could try to get through this. But now after knight d3, black responds with a4, and white goes for another extremely deep understanding move, rook d2. Looking at it for the first time, you're like, what is going on? It's such a weird maneuvers back and forth. Like, what do we even achieve from it? But the situation is not too simple. Let's have some clarifications. White wants to start the attack on the king side as soon as possible. The rook does an amazing job covering up the d3 and c2, but most importantly, the queen is getting free to jump on h5. Potentially some g4 or knight e6 ideas might be in there, which requires a lot of attention. So after rook d2, black goes bishop f8, and they're kind of waiting. Probably the best shot for black would have been to go for rook c4 and maybe potentially to maneuver the knight on that direction, but it doesn't really achieve much in any case. So after rook d2, black tucks the bishop back, and here it is important to strike as soon as possible. Any recommendations in chat? What do you think, ladies and gentlemen, we should do in the current situation? Please let me know. We don't have much of offers, as I see. Anyhow, here, what do we want to do? Basically, white has a good way to strike on the king side by playing g4. So we immediately go for the attack. Would like to take on e6, potentially go for g takes f5 ideas, etc. Because if f takes g4, which is so important, we take on e6, and right after f takes e6, we've got this queen g4. And what happens next? This e6 bishop was covering really well the whole position, but now we managed to get rid of it, attacking the pawn on e6, and we can bring the knight on f4 as well, which is an amazing idea for white. And they do it from the distance, the way that they prevent all the activity from white. This is high-level chess, no doubt. Right after g4, black realized that taking probably is not the best shot, and tucked the bishop back on d7. If white decides to take it, bishop takes back, and it does look like black has plenty of pawns on the king side, which can hold the position together, so it is not really mandatory to make some direct moves. But on the other hand, after bishop d7, white has got this g5. Very nice looking move. And the plan is to bring the queen on h5 as well, or just to take on h6, h5 ideas. We have many things coming up. H takes g5, h takes g5, and black goes with g6. Right after that, it is important to develop the pieces with the tempo, and we go for queen f3. Why don't we play knight e6 before playing g4? That's a good question. In this situation, knight e6 and let's say f takes and then g4, we might just kind of give a sign to black that they could start to play something like rook f7 and hold on to the position. It doesn't really change much, but the thing is that you might not want to grab the bishop on e6 right away. You might prefer to just go with g5, because f4 knight has definitely way more value than the bishop standing on e6. So g5, and well, if we have enough amount of time, we will be happy to take on h6 as well, bring the queen up, maybe king h2, rook is coming here. And bear in mind that black has the whole amount of pieces on the queen side, which is trying to, do everything on that flank, and nothing seems to work, because b2 is the only main weakness, which is well covered. H takes g5, h takes g5, and g6. White develops the pieces with the tempo, attacking the pawn. Bishop e6 is not a big of a surprise, and this is the next critical moment of the game. What do you think, ladies and gentlemen? How should we play in this situation with the white pieces? Please let me know in chat what you think about. Maybe king g2, unless black has a threat somewhere. King g2 is actually an excellent way to play in this situation, no doubt, and is definitely one of the best way to play. You're absolutely right. Our plan is to bring the rook as soon as possible on h1, get the queen on h3, and maybe potentially go over some checkmate ideas, because it doesn't look like black has things covered at all. So why not just to go for the direct attack? So what should we do right now? After rook h1, black plays rook c4, because there is not much going on in this situation. And white plays, knight c7, and white plays another beautiful move, rook d1. Unbelievable masterpiece. Now, Dominguez wants to go for rook h4, rook h1, and queen h3 to go all in for the attack. Probably you're wondering, what happens if we try queen h3? Isn't it faster? Well, if the bishop comes on g7, and probably you have seen the situations when the g7 bishop holds the position the way that it's just impossible to break through. Sometimes there are occasions like that, and this is one of those. Always try to avoid this kind of bishop, because we can give a check, king goes there. It does look like a huge fortress that our pieces cannot get through, which is a really bad news for us. So we should try to look for some other ways, no doubt. So after playing this rook dd1, because white wants to put the rook first on h4, then double it up, and then queen h3. So if the rook will be the piece which stands the most front in the line, we can try to go for rook h8 idea. If the bishop takes, we can take it back with the queen, and it's going to be fine. So now black plays bishop g7, rook h4, and queen d7. Probably the most precise move for black would have been to escape with king f8 and start the evacuation process, but not so fast, because the rook is attacking the bishop on g7, and objectively, this position doesn't look that pleasant, actually, at the end of the day. That's why here, going back, queen d7 was played, rook d to h1, and queen went on d8. And that's another moment of the game. What should white do next? The g5 pawn is under attack, so it was a really nice looking move for black. If we try to go for a queen h3, black can just take on g5, and it's not like the most direct checkmate pattern, unfortunately, anymore. Because let's say we go queen h3 in this situation. Queen g5 is one of them, but another will be king f8. And okay, we can try rook h8, but bishop takes back, queen goes there, and the king kind of escapes. And what do we have next? Probably some opportunities might arise, but nothing major. We can try to take it with the intention of if pawn takes rook here, but the king kind of escapes, so it's not worth it. Therefore, Domingos plays another calm and devastating move, queen g3, protecting the pawn on g5, and then he wants to prepare rook h7 first, make sure that the bishop is getting neutralized, and then go for the attack. Look at this beauty. Knight b5, rook h7, giving up the pawn on d4, because we are going all in the attack on the king side, and white plays queen h4. The threat is rook g7. If the king takes queen h6 check, and when the king goes down, we've got queen h8 checkmate. Also, we wouldn't mind rook h8 if we get the opportunity. Usually, what we have in mind, if king f8, that's when we are going to take on g7. Black is out of moves, and therefore black resigns. A beautiful masterpiece, excellently played by Dominguez, like absolutely flawless ideas. And if there is someone which claims to play positionally well, this is one of those occasions where Dominguez was just on fire. Let me know, ladies and gentlemen, how did you like it? How tough it was for you to handle this difficulty of positions. And also, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up to the live stream and subscribe the channel if you haven't done so. It's still the beginning. Me and Grandmaster Arkady are trying it. It's still the beginning steps. And you know how difficult it is. If you want some more educational material, feel free to join us. Okay, moving on to the next one. Wojtaszek plays against Fyodorov, two grandmasters. White has 2706 and black player has 2609. As you can see, this is quite a serious grandmasters. The one which plays with the white pieces was one of Anand's seconds, and he won a really beautiful game in the Czech league, which is the one in front of us. And let's have a look at it, what happened. d4, knight f6, c4, g6, knight c3, bishop g7. We have got King's Indian, fianchetto variation, where knight c6, short castle, and bishop f5 was played. It's considered as a sideline, but we can say quote unquote, but still almost 1,500 or 2,000 games have been played on that in the database. And what black wants to do is to play knight e4, potentially to try to trade off the pieces like that. And objectively, if everything will be fine and they end up putting the bishop on e4, this bishop wakes up, there is a pressure on the d4 pawn, the knight is under attack, so is the pawn on d4, and black is doing great. But after bishop f5, it has its own downsides. The bishop might be under attack very soon in case white ever decides to push this e4. Before we dive into these details, I want to mention that usually the main line goes with a6 followed by rook b8 and b5. Kasparov was the main advocate of this variation. He used to play this almost exclusively. He was a big fan of King's Indian and did it quite successfully as well at the same time. So after bishop f5, we push d5, knight jumps on a5, and we tuck the knight back on d2. Now, if you're thinking why not knight d4, kind of looks logical. Thing is that black puts the bishop on d7. We can't really win the knight immediately by pushing the pawn on b4, but we can try to play right now with a b3, which is going to be a bit slow because black has enough time for c5. And before we move on, we have got with us Arkady Naiditsch. How are you doing, Arkady? Good evening.
Good, busy day, but things are good. I can see that your started was very interesting game. By the way, the French game you've been just watching, it's one of my favorite games in general. Fantastic
Crazy
game of
one.
French.
These maneuvers are like absolutely flawless, by the way. So yes, Dominguez, different level, no doubt.
Huge game. I mean, absolutely a huge game that we can learn so many things from. Yeah.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. So I was looking at this variation, and basically after knight a5, white played knight d2. And the main reason is to push e4, potentially to go with maybe f4 ideas and start the attack on the king side. After knight d2, black responds with c5. And we don't really want to take this pawn on c6 because the knight is coming back, and we end up into some sort of Sicilian variations where black is doing fine. But of course, one of the biggest threat is just to push this b4. After c5, e4, and the bishop goes back on d7. Now white continues with queen c2, develops the pieces normally, and let's not forget about the fact that long term, white wants to attack on the king side.
Yes, and I would add, Georgi, just short addition to what you say. In these positions, usually in case white is able to play b3. By the way, do you see?
Yes, yes, all set.
It's visible. Okay, so usually when you have the possibility to play with white b3, followed by bishop b2, then even to play a4 is very good because black is playing without a knight. So it's a full knight down. So it's a very dangerous positional idea. If we get b3, bishop b2, followed by a4, it is game over with a knight on a5. Black is putting the knight on a5, which is usually connected to something like b5, very fast, or as fast as possible. In case b5 is not working, it means trouble for black. That's why with the next move, we see something like the move e5. So black was not sure, what should I do against idea b3, bishop b2 followed by, for example, a4, and then we have the move f4 coming, long run, e5. So it's going to be like a wave, yeah, of the white pawns.
Indeed. Arkady, maybe you can try to take over if you'd like to as well from now on this position, as you wish.
Let's do together as usual, but
sure.
Just this addition of b3, bishop b2 is just extremely important to get it, yeah, for white.
Yes, indeed.
If white manages to get it.
I've tried it with the white pieces actually a couple of times, this setup. And every time I have this b3, bishop b2 standing, maybe it's due to the inability of my opponents of playing it properly. I was quite happy with the outcome there. There was not much happening on the queen side and everything was doing fine. And here, right after e5, black not knowing exactly what to do, white goes with the b3. And, well, it's a difficult position. If a3, a6, we mentioned that there is going to be a4, everything is covered. Otherwise, white just wants to put the bishop on b2, and eventually maybe h3, f4, and all the good stuff happening on the king side. Black goes knight g4. Understood that there is not much happening on the queen side, and they are definitely not in time just because a4 will be there. And black tries to break through with f5 as soon as possible. I believe after h3 they can tuck the knight back on h6 and continue the position with that way. But here white goes bishop b2 and f5. it is an important moment of the position.
Very important. Very,
Yes.
very important. Yeah.
We need to know exactly what to do because black wouldn't mind going for potentially f4 ideas, maybe not necessarily taking here. And, every time you see this kind of breakthrough opportunities, it is mandatory to play extremely precisely. So, Arkady, what would you tell us about this position?
Once you see the move f5, usually, or it's good news because we have something with white, or it's very bad news if we have nothing.
Hmm.
So when you see black is playing f5, it can be very good for both sides. After f5, we should never let the move f4 happen. This is very, very obvious. So when you have the King's Indian structures with a bishop on g2, you should never let black to play f4. We need to act usually against f5 in the same way. So we are taking on f5. It is a must. So again, we cannot let f4 be played. We have to take. Black has to take because obviously black cannot take with a bishop who puts this monster knight on e4, and this is clearly better for white. Again, the knight on a5 completely out of the game. And after g takes f5, which is forced, the idea of white is to get the move f4. Why do we want to play the move f4? We want to play the move f4 so we get some action in the center, and then the knight on a5 will be still out of the game. So it's like an extra piece. Basically, we have an extra piece, just we need to make use out of it. And how can we make use out of the extra piece? It is by playing somewhere where the piece is not participating. This time, it's obviously the center. So the idea is to get f4 as fast as we can. And exactly this is what we see in the game. So we see the move h3, followed by f4. So very, very nice. Strategically wise, perfect play. And again, black has to decide what to play next. With black, we have the option of playing e4, or we have the option of doing, let's say, nothing. So we keep on waiting. Georgi, would you play in the current position the move e4, or would you keep on waiting with the black pieces? Like, what would you do?
That's a tough question to say. Actually, I would not go for e4.
Okay.
Because I've had some nightmares when the knight ends up on e3, the king coming up on h2 as well, and then this g4 ideas, and I've seen it quite a lot. If I have an alternative option, I would gladly go for it, but I'm thinking there is something like knight h5 maybe or something. I would try to
Let's try.
dynamically go for the setups more rather than pushing the pawn forward.
Okay, let's try the move knight h5. So after knight h5, g3 pawn is under attack. So with white, usually we want to counter something like knight h5 or directly with f takes e5. If we cannot, then with the move knight to e2. Both is possible. I don't know what is better because eventually we might be able to take on e5. The question is bishop takes e5 because in case black takes with a pawn, this is dangerous for black because we're going to play maybe even knight e2. And here, this structure is very dangerous for black. Yes, there is some attacking chances, but usually these chances are not leading to a decisive attack. And then we're going to see a lot of action here with e5, f5, and knight on a5 completely out of the game. You need the knight on d6. So you need to go like b6, knight b7, knight d6 takes a lot of time. Not easy to hold, yeah, the center. So white is going to play knight f3, attacking something, knight h4. Um, they're going to be something for white. It's difficult to keep the things together for black. But again, maybe bishop e5 is better. So after bishop e5, yes, this position looks quite interesting. Hard to say who is better here. Very difficult to say. So knight e2 also looks logical. It's a big mess. Even though, again, I would prefer to be white because knight on a5 is out of the game. So I don't know.
Mhm.
I don't like to play knight down positions here, basically. Very dangerous
Yes.
strategically.
Yes, indeed.
So not so easy, hard to tell. And again, fe is not a must. We can go like knight e2. So we keep everything together. The next move is knight f3. I don't know. I think
Yeah,
that white is looking better.
definitely. It's just a tough decision to make right now. between taking the pawn or pushing it on e4 and so on. And at the end of the day, black has decided to push it forward.
Yes.
The moment that happens, it's time to regroup the pieces with the white properly. The best blockader against this protected passed pawn is the knight, because the knight can attack the base on f5, and potentially, since the center is getting more or less locked up, we need to look for the counterplays on the flanks. Therefore, white plays an amazing move, knight d1. The general idea is to bring the knight on e3, stopping the pawn. Of course, we would love to open up the diagonal and maintain pressure on the f5. When the time is right, we can try to break through with g4 as well and open up the files even more. So black goes here queen e8. Logical approach, wants to put the queen on g6, move the knight on h5, and it will not harm black for going for the setups like that to attack on the king side. White plays a good move, king h2, prophylaxis against the upcoming moves, because if we just go for knight e3 randomly, black is going to play these, and if we try, let's say, king h2, knight h5, and all of a sudden there are some threats, and how do we solve the problems on the g3 pawn? If we try to push it forward, black will be happy to take it, then f4 pawn will have problems. That's why here, Wojtaszek thought for some time and understood that knight h5 and queen g6 are the key problems, because the pawn on g3 at the end of the day will be hanging. So he did a great prophylactical move, king h2, and after queen g6 that knight h5 was coming, another nice move, rook f2.
Yeah, rook f2, very beautiful. Very beautiful positional play, no, Georgi? So nice, yeah. The idea of knight f1 next, just so great. Defending the pawn on g3 and simultaneously covering the square e3 for the future. Very nice play.
That's really top quality, actually. And here black realized that after knight h5, knight f1 was coming, and potentially black could go for this setup with rook f7, let's say knight d e3, king h8. But it's quite difficult to understand what is next. Probably double-edged positions, but white has a bit more compact pieces. Depends of how things go. Black chose a bit more passive approach and played king of 7. So tell us, Arkady, in these situations, is it usually time to start evacuating the king on the other side, or you usually prefer to keep the knight on h5, rook f7, and fight back over there?
The problem is always the knight on a5. So if we have enough time to get like b6, knight b7, knight d8, knight f7, then black might be slightly worse, but you might be able to hold just to put h5 and knight h6. So the main idea of white is going to be at some moment to play the move g4, yes? So if we get like h5, knight h6, we might be able to hold the position. But of course, black is fighting for equality. It is not white. To play move king f7 looks a bit strange because it's a long way to run through the center. Too far. It is just too far. The idea is not bad. It would be great for black, let's say, to get the rook on e8 and then to get the king to b8, for example. But it's just too far. You will not manage. Yes, this is the problem. That idea is not bad, but execution is almost impossible. How can you make a move like king a7 without getting something like g4 and an explosion in the center? Yeah.
Yes.
So very, very difficult to execute. Idea good. Execution not very practical, because you're not gonna make it. You're not gonna make it with a king from f7 to e7, d8, etc. It's just too far. Too far away. So I believe that black should have played the move to knight h5. It just looks normal. Knight f1, it looks normal. Rook f7, a very typical idea. King h8, rook to g8. So the things are very, very objectively normal. But the question is what to play next. So the idea of white is simple. We are getting ready to play the move g4. So eventually we bring the rook from a1 over e1, e2, f2. So white is getting ready for the move g4. We can play first also rook g1 just to activate the bishop. So we're getting ready to push the move g4. And it seems like it's difficult with black to stop the move g4, except that we sacrifice something. So, or black has to get ready to sacrifice a lot, or black is doing very, very bad. because it seems like to play b6, knight b7, knight d8, rook back, knight f7, knight h6. We need so many moves, no, Georgi?
Yes.
So from human point of view, you are thinking that you will be crushed because there's at some moments a move g4 and that's it. Game is over. So how to prevent this move g4? You start to panic. Maybe you start to calculate, can I play something like h5? And then I'm going to try to play immediately the move b6. I'm going to write run with a knight on h6. But maybe white is just faster. So for example, knight e3, b6, you go like very easy moves. Rook g1, knight b7, very easy move. Bishop f1, bishop e2, also very typical for these positions. So knight d8, for example, bishop e2, knight f7, and then you're thinking that, well, g4 might be just winning because so big pressure, yeah, on the g file. Just too much. And you realize it's too much as well. There might be some tricks with bishop takes f6 and queen d1, taking h5. I don't know if this is good to take or bad to take, but needs to be calculated as well. So you are just too scared with black. So you are scared, and then you try to escape with the king just immediately, yeah, by playing this king f7. But of course, there is no escape. Yeah, so king f7 is a bad move to keep the king in the center. Usually a bad idea, or you can make it instantly. So very, very dangerous play from black to get king f7. Yeah, to play king f7.
Well, very deep dive thoughts. Actually, I'm just thinking if you thought right now more than Fyodorov in his own game, figuring it out actually how much strategy was
Why?
going in his head.
No,
I
no, Fedorov is a
firmly,
good player.
yes, just, I don't know, like extremely well explained. So here we have a question. Did black absolutely have to play e4 after f4? Could black allow f takes e5? If so, b6, f4 straight to the knight, the journey back on b7, d6.
Yes, this is always a big question. E4 or without E4, I guess black thought that E4 should be played because f takes E5 is just too dangerous. And indeed, it can be very, very dangerous. It must be calculated. Each time you see F4, usually white is doing maybe slightly better. And you have to decide if you go E4 for a passive defense or you try to keep E5, F5. But of course, you might fall apart. Yeah, this is the downside of keeping e5, f5 that white is going to take eventually on e5, and then white is going to attack e5, f5. Very tricky positions, very hard to judge. I believe each time it has to be calculated. There is no general term. When do you play e4 and when do you keep the pawn on e5? I don't think there is something that we can say, yeah, in most of the cases, this is the way to go. It's much more calculation than anything else, in my opinion.
I see. That's what I thought as well there, because whenever I had this thinking process in my mind, never came across with something which would directly say about it. So, yes. And now after knight e3, rook g8, white puts the rook on g1. And of course, it's time for white to look for potential counterplay with g4. And here black plays bishop h6. So what white wants to do in these situations in general is to either move the bishop on h1 or f1, then make this g4 work. Any kind of exchange should be comfortable for white, and the pawns are starting running down the board, and the king is quite misplaced on f7 as well. And it is quite obvious that black plays a piece down, and white's pieces are perfectly located. But when black plays bishop h6, I guess the general idea is that if at some point some g4 will be played, of course, first of all, they would like to activate the pieces that they can eye down the f4 pawn. White plays bishop h1, tucking the bishop back, giving a bit of space, and after b6, this is the moment to, like, how do people come up with this idea? Let's say a move which we have in mind and the follow-up. So tell us more of the inside, Arkady. What should be our thinking process in these occasions?
I personally think in quite a straight way. I believe that the main idea of white is to play g4. So it's all about playing the move g4. There is some idea of playing a3, b4, but usually it's just the wrong direction. So we should not play where we are not better. It's all about the move g4. So how do we make the move g4 happen? We have to calculate. Can I play the move g4? So you have to calculate this each time. And as well as black, you have to calculate, is there a g4 that might crush me? So both players are fighting for this g4 possibility. And if we want to play the move g4, so we can try to improve the pieces to the maximum before playing the move g4. And here, when we see the knight is great, knight on d2, potentially putting pressure on the move on the pawn e4, which is not a bad knight. Can we bring the knight to some better square? Difficult to say what is a better square than d2 at the moment. It might be knight f1, but also on d2 is standing pretty well. Bishop b2 standing well. Queen c2, excellent, because where to put the queen? So basically, we feel that it should be the moment to play g4. King is on f7, bad position. Still rook on a8, out of the game. Still knight on a5, out of the game. So we have two extra pieces, which always gives us some bonus, let's call it like this. It's not for sure that g4 is working, but it's probably that g4 is working. So when you have two extra pieces in the game, it's a huge edge, yeah? Huge. So even when we say g4 uncertain, because yeah, many threats, many things, we can say that probably it is the time to push something because we have the two extra pieces in the game. So in my opinion, let's say if I would play a blitz game and I would not know what happens after g4 because not enough time to calculate, I would just push the move g4 and I would say, okay, let's see what happens, because probably it is the right choice.
Perfect, perfect, perfect. Very good insights. We go with g4. Obviously, it cannot go unnoticed. Black needs to react on it because g5 is literally on the way. So f takes g4 makes sense. And here comes the best part of it. White can't actually take on g4, I believe, because of taking here, grabs it back. I think queen h5. We are probably
And
getting mated already at this point. So we should do something else. Can we push f5? Well, queen will go on h5. What do we have next? On the other hand, g3 is coming. And this is a fascinating idea that white just plays rook g3, preventing g3 idea. And all of a sudden, white is going to play knight e4, maybe bishop takes f6 and then knight e4 ideas. It kind of slows down black's approach. If the queen goes on h5, similar plan what we already had in mind, the h3 pawn is protected, so there is no queen h3 coming. If we go for knight takes e4, knight e4, bishop e4, white is good to go. G takes h3, black is looking forward to open up the files as soon as possible to go after the king, but white has this beautiful motive, bishop f3. And black really struggles to find the places for the pieces. And let's say if the queen tries to go on h4, we might potentially already go for knight f5 idea as well. It does look like white is just dominating at this point. So in the game after rook g3, black goes for rook e8. And it is definitely time to go for concrete variations. Taking here again would lead to something similar. And it's time to grab this piece, which is covering up a lot of good stuff like e4, g4. Queen takes, knight e4, queen goes away, and knight takes on g4. And we end up in this situation where white has amazing pawns. They are running down the board. Knight on e4 looks amazing. And we can have, let's say, 5 seconds of silence for this knight on a5, which just got there a long time ago, had absolutely no play at all, and from far away was watching whatever was going on. After that,
knight is definitely not an MVP, no?
Yes, definitely not. Just the guy which stood there, did nothing. And well, soon after, white managed to get the victory. Queen h4 was played, attacks the queen and the bishop at the same time. Queen g4 It's essential to not get mated down the road, so white found another powerful move, knight g5 check, with the intention of cutting this file, and when the bishop takes, there comes queen h7. At this point, black has seen enough and resigned, but I'll just clarify. If the king goes back, there is f takes g5, discover check, rook g7 would lead to the same idea, and white will have either heavy extra material on the board or most likely a checkmate right away, so white wins the game. So,
Okay, very, very beautiful game.
amazing stuff,
Indeed.
really.
Amazing stuff. And the next one is also very nice. By the way, Georgi, can you double check if we are live? Because I don't see us, for example, on Lichess. Can you check,
Let
please?
me check it out.
Yeah, I will start the game and you please check it out if we are doing well in the live, because maybe something happened. Okay, so let me start. The next game is between Nepomniachtchi and Kuisada. As well, Kuisada is well-known GM, strong GM, good player. Thank you very much for the comment. We try to do our best with Georgi to have educational streams, so we try to actually help people to get better in chess. Maybe not as exciting as our hero for the excitements, sadistic Toshi or Tushi, Georgi, what's his name?
Tushi.
Tushi.
Actually, his name
But
is Tushar.
Tushar, that's why.
Tushar,
Okay,
yes.
so yeah. And of course, we are as well not as popular as him, but we try to give educational chess material. All right, next game. So the opening is not that relevant to us. This is still theory where white is having the center and black is trying to counter against the center with a move e5. It's a theoretical variation, so nothing new here. Knight f3, black takes, bishop g5, all theory. And actually here, a very funny thing for those who are watching. So we have the move bishop e7. What happens in case black plays the move d3? Can you name me that in the chat, please? What white has to play after the move d3? This is a very well-known trap. The d3 is a bad move. So who can see it first? White d3 is actually quite bad. I want to see something in the chat. For the moment, nothing in the chat. So, Georgi, they are thinking they are in the cinema.
Yes, they are like
We
really
are like a
trying to
movie.
figure out
We are
what
like a
to
movie.
do.
Yes, now we have
Yes.
the chat. Short castle, indeed correct. Yeah, what a beautiful play, no? Like
Wow.
d3 and then short castle. Take a little mate on d8 in case of queen takes e2. There is rook e1. Like so nice. So yes, d3 is a bad move. So I have bishop e7 and take, short castle, short castle. Now we have to evaluate this position. So this is a very important thing. How to evaluate such positions? It looks like white is doing a little better, but there's very few material on the board. That's why evaluation is not simple here. According to theory, I think the best move for black is to play rook to d8. And after the rook to d8, this position is very minimal beta for white, like very little better. Usually black is playing next the move c5. So as well, we have to understand this kind of structures. So for example, with after the move c5, the idea of white should be always to play the move d5. And how to evaluate something like that? Usually it's slightly better for white in case black manages, for example, to get knight to f6, get comfortable with a move b6, bishop d7, maybe to block the pawn and to change the rooks. Yes, black is fine. This would be equal, but it's difficult because it takes so much time. So usually with little time, black is doing here slightly worse. So that's why we see the move bishop g4 in the game, and we're going to see a very interesting position for evaluation. So h3, black is taking on f3, take, and plays knight on c6. It seems like black managed to equalize. There is rook d8 coming next. We know that combination of knight and queen is better than bishop and queen in most of the cases. Of course, white can take the knight on c6 straight away, but well, this is just equal. So nothing is gonna happen there. White has to do something special. In case of moves like d5, this is just a bad move because now knight e5 and black is covering all the dark squares. So it might be already black who is playing for a win. d5, bad move. Rook b1, good move. We put immediately a pressure on b7. Very, very important. Rook 88 makes sense. So black is taking rook away from this pin. And of course, rook d8, yeah, very nice. Black wants to take the pawn. Rook on e1, winning a tempo. Queen on f6. It seems like black managed to equalize. Still, the move d5 cannot bring any kind of any sort of advantage because it's just wrong to play d5. Here, maybe white can hope to get the pawn on b7, but after the move d5, I think there is just knight a5, followed by the move b6, followed by the move knight b7, and get the knight to c5. So again, knight and queen is a better combo than queen and bishop. So long term, the knight will be more powerful. Only black can play here for a win. So what to do for white to try to get better? And here comes an amazing positional decision. I mean, it's really so nice. Rook takes b7, so white is not afraid of move knight d4 because it seems like white should be afraid of the knight d4, but white is not. And we have the move rook takes d4. So let's see, instead of rook to d4, what do we have after knight takes d4? We have to take the c7 pawn. This is so important. In case black manages to play the move c6, black is better. So for example, rook takes a7, c6. I believe that this position is just better for black. Pawn down. And white has the a pawn, but this is better for black with this monster knight on d8. So it's important to understand this. Black is gonna develop very dangerous play in the long run. So immediately there is nothing, but black is gonna just improve the position by playing g6, for example, h5 next, king to g7. So first, putting the pieces very, very safe. Then at some moment, we're gonna play like rook e8 or rook to b8. So objectively, if white escapes here, it's a good result for white. So it is black who is gonna play for a win. So luckily, white has this rook takes c7. So very, very important to take the c7 pawn because now we want to go bishop on d5. And the best probably black can do here is to take on f3. So we have this rook endgame. Well, is it possible to save this rook endgame, or if this is a win for white? It's hard to say. So in any case, it's such an unpleasant rook endgame. The second rook is getting to e7, and then you're gonna be pawn down, plus very active rooks for white. So feels extremely unpleasant. Georgi, can you hear me?
I do. All set. Just
Because
checked
I
it
don't know
out.
if the chat
Technical
is running.
thing. Actually, yes, it's all set.
Okay. So we are visible. We are good.
Yes, all set.
All set. Okay, excellent. So that's why white took on c7. So it's that important. And bishop d5 next. So much better for white. Now, black took with the rook on d4. White played the move queen e2. And suddenly, it's so weird that there's no good square for the knight to escape from c6. Little strange, no? That there is just no good square. Rook c7 is coming next. Knight e5 is covered by the e-file pressure. And there's simply nothing that black can do. It's so strange. But a great play by white. Yeah, to understand that, to feel that is so difficult. Very high level game by Nepomniachtchi. Rook d7, and here comes the key idea of white. So still black is hoping to get this knight d4, but obviously Nepomniachtchi has something in mind. It is not to take on c6 because this position should be more or less a draw. To win this rook endgame, it's almost impossible. In best case, you get 3 versus 3 with an a pawn, and this is a draw on a high level, so this is not enough to win the game. That's why queen e8, boom. What a move, no?
Oh,
Georgi, how do you like the move queen e8?
unbelievable, actually. If
Very,
someone
very beautiful, yeah.
wants to force my rook to go away with the move like that, I would be quite disappointed to see it.
Yeah. So queen e8, and actually black finds the best defense now. Also very spectacular. Rook e7, just the best defense. So both players are doing so well. Here's a very little nice line. Queen c6. We take on c6. Queen takes. And now for those who've been with us yesterday, who've been solving puzzles with us, I guess you would find a very quick win here. Take, and king is falling. It is a checkmate. As Georgi would say, black has to play at least 2 more moves. Rook d8 and queen e8. And now with white, you have to take a deep shot to take it with a with a e rook or d rook. It would be a serious decision. So black plays this amazing defense with a move for rook e7. As you can see, very tactical. White has to take, and queen to d7. Now, bishop dominates the knight. Before, we had a reverse situation where knight should have been a better piece than the bishop. And now suddenly we have the bishop dominating the knight. Check, check, rook c8. Black tries to keep the things together, because if black would resign on the pawn c7 and on the pawn a7, it's just too much. Rook c8, and now another great move by white. Rook to b3. What a transportation, no? Georgi, left,
Uh,
right, center.
it looked like white wanted to break through on the queen side and they were ready for it. And all of a sudden coming back to maneuver it. Yeah, it's such an impressive vision on the board that you calculate through, especially if you have it calculated from far away, that you can come back and attack the queen. This is really amazing, though.
Yeah, very, very high level play, like super high level play. Queen d6, rook d3, take. So now the things are forced. Endgame is already better with bishop versus knight. So it's not the same. The queens are gone from the board. Black has to defend the knight on e7, and we have this bishop b7. So we are winning the pawn on c7. And we can call it basically a game on a high level, because now the bishop is better than the knight. Plus we have the 7th rank. So to defend this position is very, very difficult. Still, black is fighting, as you can see. But yeah, this is basically game over. Yeah. On a high level, it is game over. The last precise move by white. Maybe you can write the move in the chat in case you're fast enough to find the solution. White has a couple of options here, but we have here the last game of the current game. White is finishing in style, I would call it.
Mm-hmm.
So white is playing the move a4. Very, very nice. c6 is eventually the next move. In case of rook takes c5, we have rook d7. King cannot go on e8 because of the check. King cannot go on c8 because we simply win the piece. So fantastic game by Nepomniachtchi. Very, very high-level game, and everything else in simple. So many difficult moves on both sides, and finally Nepomniachtchi wins the game. So very, very nice to learn from games like that. Okay, Georgi. So next game, we have two of the greatest Russian players. It is Kramnik and Grishuk. By the way, Georgi, you like more the playing style of Kramnik or of Grishuk?
If probably it's not so hard to guess based on you knowing me, Kramnik.
Kramnik is
Yes, yes, my
your
idol
preferred, yeah?
definitely. Then Grishuk, because like I do enjoy watching the games when it's more based on the class, like deep strategical stuff. That's why I enjoy a lot actually seeing this session just and these games actually. It fits into my playing style more rather than hectic situations on the board. So Kramnik definitely by far compared to Grishuk, which I like more. No doubt.
Okay, but actually, Georgi, I have a different opinion about Kramnik. So many think that Kramnik been a very positional player. I think it is false. Kramnik is a tactician, and he has a huge preparation. And he knows, of course, the positions very well. Of course, he's one of the greatest chess players that ever played chess, so he doesn't do bad mistakes. But let's say Kramnik played endgames so-so. It was not his strengths. And in case you see the playing style of Kramnik, okay, we cannot see it any longer because he stopped, but for example, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, Kramnik would just sit down and try to calculate endgame till the end. The same he was doing in a lot of different positions. So Kramnik had absolutely amazing calculation because I played him so many games, and when it got complex, usually he was doing extremely well, Georgi. Personally, I never been so scared of Kramnik in positional chess. I was much more scared when he had openings, of course, been just huge, unbelievable openings by Kramnik.
He was too
And
good, yes, on that.
no, but he had huge openings, just absolutely huge. And as well, his calculation been just brilliant. Of course, he's very good in everything, but his calculation and opening, I think this been the two strong sides of Vladimir. Yeah. Okay, let's take a look. So we have the King's Indian, Bishop e2, e5. This is a very, very famous game on the King's Indian defense because this was one of the main lines. Knight c6 is counted as a main line of the King's Indian, and b4 is one of the main lines. Knight h5, so we see a very forced line, and g3. This line been, I think, popularized by Vladimir Kramnik. The line was g3. He played it all the time, and actually he showed great results. It's quite a deep idea after g3. So black is pushing the move f5 because obviously this is what black does. The idea is to get knight to g5, knight f6, because usually we like to say that once the knight gets to e6, white is doing better, but currently it's everything else than that, because we cannot resign on the pawn e4, and to take, for example, on f5 and to play knight to e6, this is very, very unclear, because black simply takes, and black has a huge center. So black can go like c6, d5, e4. And yes, it's great that we change the knight for the bishop, which is a good thing, but we're not in time to stop this lawine of the black pawns. That's why not so easy. Bishop f3. This was the idea of Kramnik. He introduced, I think, this line, or he was one of the first on the high level to have this g3 bishop f3 idea. Black plays the move c6 because black is getting ready for the knight e6. c6 always very good against the bishop on f3. Now, bishop g2. White is staying calm. h6, one of the best moves. Knight e6, take, 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 and b5. Fantastic play by Kramnik. I mean, how to get the idea of playing b5? Spectacular. In case white is just going to take on e4, there is d5, and this is more or less equal because the e6 pawn is getting lost. So we're going to see amazing deep positional idea. It is to play the move b5. Still, position looks completely fine for black, no? Georgi, what do you think?
Yes, yes, it does look like it, and plenty of pawns over there. Still trying to figure out what his idea was coming up.
Rook f6. Bishop e4, rook e6. It seems like black is now a pawn up. Georgi, would you think that
And
white is doing better currently?
no, no, and especially d5 coming as well. White is doing better.
Yes, white is doing better here, yeah. So this was a positional idea of Kramnik of the whole setup of g3, knight g5, bishop f2, bishop s3, bishop g2. The whole setup is that we get more or less something like that, and that white is doing better, actually. Maybe it's possible to save the game for black, but white is doing better. Unbelievable positional understanding, no, by Kramnik, because back then the computer has been not that strong. So computers would not suggest you that.
Wow. Okay. Well, I'm not that impressed because it's very typical Kramnik type of idea, but I'm just curious what Grishuk was thinking about getting into this position.
No, but this was a theory back then, so it was quite a popular line. But we can see how well Kramnik was prepared back then, even having quite weak computers in comparison to today. Today, mobile phone is much better than the computer of Kramnik from 20 years ago, 15 years ago. So very, very high level understanding and high level of preparation. Vladimir was just so good. So Queen A4. He is pushing against this structure, trying to break it or trying to provoke the move D5. And for black, it's very difficult to keep this kind of center because how you keep it, let's say we keep with the move Queen E8. So then there is Rook D1, so put more pressure. Then we play the move Bishop A3, we put more pressure. If more pressure is going to be needed, we're going to put doubling of the rooks on the d file. So we'll put even more pressure. So at some moment, you're going to break, and there is no counterplay for black. Bishop is very bad, so all black can do is actually keep on waiting, trying to be safe here, but it's very difficult. So white is pushing. I don't say that black's position is lost in no way, but black is worse. So black has to be very, very accurate to escape into a draw. Great positional play by Kramnik, amazing preparation. D5, King H7, so Grishuk continues trying to be safe. Takes, and another brilliant move. Queen B3. Very hard to find this move. Because I guess most of us would have played something like Bishop A3, no?
Yes.
Georgi, what do you think?
Yes, that actually looks good. And what's the reason it doesn't work? D4 is coming? Maybe. Perhaps,
I
actually.
don't think. No, but do you think? I think no, because after d4, I believe, look at this bishop on e4. I think this is better for white if we do just slow play like rook c1, etc. So I think with the bishop on e4, white is doing better in most of the cases.
So the question is why it was not played. Yes, let's say bishop a3.
Bishop a3, I think black should rush with exchange, so something like a6.
Mhm.
In case I manage to change the pawn on b5, and yes, I will have this horrible bishop on g7, but is it enough to win the game for white? This is a question. White is better, yeah, but is it enough to win? So I think this is a problem. That black might be very fast changing all the pieces, and it might be just a draw. Yeah. Not enough material to win. A little better, yeah, but is it enough to win?
Yeah, I see. So it's possible actually because it does look like
Yeah.
bishop a3 is such a natural way to go, and the attack and everything. Oh,
No, but absolutely, bishop a3 feels very natural, but queen b3 is just much stronger because it doesn't give you this kind of chances.
that's true. That's true. This is very classy move though.
Yes,
Can be
very,
very
very nice.
classy move.
Now, if, for example, d5 pawn might be hanging already. Rook b6, a4, prevention again, a6. So black is quite smart. Yeah, black has to change, and black is trying to change. But here comes bishop a3. And not so easy to change most of the things. So AB still played. Black is defending very well, but rook d5. And here is the problem. How do you avoid now many threats by white at the same time? So we have the positional threat, a5, rook takes b5, b7, pawn is gonna fall. We have the another direct threat. It is to play rook to d1, rook d7, and then I think it's gonna be a mate. We have the idea of h4, h5. And it seems like black is not in time. Of course, if black would be in time, it would be a draw. If black would manage to change a rook, I think also black might have good drawing chances, but how to make it? How to change now something, Georgi?
Doesn't look
this is the
so
problem,
realistic because everything is tied down oddly. And this g7 bishop is such a bad piece. I'm trying to figure out if a5 knight was worse or this one. Okay, I think a5 knight because it just did nothing throughout the whole game though. Wow. Okay, so it does look like a piece of, but this h4, h5 ideas feel like these are the killer ones though. It's slowly white coming after you. They can grab on p5. And the most annoying part is when you have no counterplay whatsoever. this feels the worst. Like
Difficult to
what?
play, yeah.
Yes.
Difficult to
What do you
play.
have? And against Kramnik, I guess it's another point as well. You know that he will not miss some opportunities here, and he will
No,
come
no,
after
but
you.
Vladimir, when he was doing better, he also felt extremely confident, yeah. Very, very confident. And yeah, he's usually not missing the chances, yeah. He was not missing the chances. So, Grishuk thought, what can I do? Let me keep the B pawn at least. A5. So white continues with the idea of getting rook to B5. If white wins the B7 pawn, the game is done. Queen F7. Now things are getting a little tactical. H4. Idea is H5. And actually black made a mistake by playing H5. Now we come to the last move of the game. Maybe we see somebody write us the answer in the chat. Let's see if the chat is going to be a little bit more active. By the way, if you have questions, again, write your questions in the chat. It's so nice to ask some question. I personally, I asked always many questions. There's
And
nothing to fear.
and also we are getting close to 200 subscribers. It will be like a
Oh,
round number. Yes. So for those who hasn't clicked that magical button, just click it and check out within a couple of hours there will be a happiness to your family actually. Just click it actually. Magic happens. And YouTube gives the fireworks and so on.
Yeah, so Georgi, the magic man, very spiritual. On the other hand, I think I'm much more simple. I like to say if you enjoy the educational content that actually is not so common on YouTube, just give us a like. It would help us. It would help us to make the channel better. So we would be thankful. All right, we see the right answer in the chat. Excellent. It is the move queen to d1 indeed. What a beautiful finishing move. Queen to d1. And we attack the rook on the left. And then the queen switches to the right, queen h5. Because we have this bishop here on e4. So double attack. As many players, chess players, are saying, chess is a game of double attack. If you can attack something at two places at the same time, usually you're gonna win the game. And indeed, Grishuk just resigns. He had enough. He had just enough. And indeed, it looks so ugly. So what a beautiful game by Kramnik. Very nice. Georgi, your last
Complete
words for the King's
complete
Indian game?
complete domination. And usually, ladies and gentlemen, if you end up having this pawn on, sorry, this bishop on g7 against anything blocking on e4, either the bishop, usually it's the knight, but the bishop is no less dangerous, as you can see. And opposite colored bishops, middle games or end games, it all comes down to whoever has the initiative. If it is your opponent, not a good news. It feels like you're playing down a piece. And exactly the same scenario happened. White just crushed through and didn't give black a single chance there when the complications arose. So kudos to Kramnik. Definitely well-deserved victory.
Very nice game. Okay, let's go to the next one. And we have, what is that? Knights are missing?
Maybe
What
refresh.
happened? What happened here?
Refresh. Something
Starting
is...
position without a knight? This is not gonna be easy. No knights. Have you ever
Wow.
seen something like this, Georgi?
Actually, on mine, it looks good. Maybe there
Wait.
is a special...
Yes, you see the knights?
Yes, I do. On my... Maybe refresh, perhaps some... cache data or something as
I don't know, because I don't see the knights, yeah? That's funny.
wow,
I thought as well, you don't see the knights. We have some...
You're looking at Ivanchuk
error.
Wang Hao?
Yes.
Yes, actually. So there was one with Kramnik Aronian. That
yeah,
one
but
has the same.
Let's not do
Ivanchuk Wang
double.
Which knights are missing?
B1, G1, B8, G8. Yeah.
All of them.
Yeah, and actually, yeah, I cannot get into leeches. Something happened. Yeah, my leeches crushed.
Oh,
Why?
maybe
Something
some
happens all the time with me.
something weird. Ladies and gentlemen, do you see the knights on the board on the screen as well? Check it out.
Okay,
Something
maybe it's just
weird.
me.
Let's have a look. Ivanchuk against Wang Hao. It's like I can start and you'll be able to join us then.
Yes.
Let's do
I
it
will
that
try to
way.
figure out what did
Okay,
happen actually with the knights. Knights are gone from the board.
interesting.
Well,
So, Vasily Ivanchuk against Wang Hao, a Ukrainian legend, at some point had 2800, and he was, if I'm not mistaken, number one in the world. And plays
number one?
against, he was, if I'm not mistaken, actually,
Really?
for
When?
like a short. I need to do the checkup actually. Just the other day I checked it out and I was surprised about that information. I'll check it out. And he
Okay.
plays against Chinese Grandmaster Wang Hao, which lately doesn't participate that frequently, but well respected, over 2700 rated player. And we have
He was to 750 even at some moment,
even,
and
yes.
we like to call Van Gaal the Chinese gangster.
Oh, okay. Why is it
Because
so?
usually Chinese are very polite, and of course a lot of things are controlled in China, but Van Gaal always did whatever he wanted. So he was like some kind of Chinese gangster.
I see. I understand.
Yeah.
I don't want to go into the depth of the questions. So let's move on. Will be better for the audience to know less on that. Bishop b4 and e3. We've got Nimzo Indian with the e3, the Rubinstein variation. I've played it many times and I have faced it with both colors. Definitely one of the most solid approach and definitely quite famous as well at the same time. Short castle, bishop d3, black goes with d5 and knight f3. And here black responds with b6. In the theory, back in the day at least, when I used to play these variations, it was way more popular to go with c5 setups, and usually all the pawns are getting traded, and at the end of the day, either white or black ends up with an isolated pawn, but b6 is also an interesting approach. The idea is quite simple, just develop the bishop either on a6 or b7, depending on the occasion. Let's say if white plays this a3, bishop takes, pawn takes, and black responds with c6. And then bishop a6 is coming. Black would love to trade off the light squared bishops and kind of finish the development, which doesn't look that bad. But you might be a bit surprised, why does black start with c6 when they have an opportunity of playing bishop a6? Well, this doesn't look as good because we can take on d5, bishop d3, queen takes d3. And here, if black decides to take the pawn with the pawn, then probably white can just go for the castle, c4, bishop b2 ideas, or a4, bishop a3. And it's not the type of position black would like to face. But if they go for queen takes d5, c4, and then queen e4 ideas, this variation has been played a couple of times so far and has the reputation that black is doing okay. So let's get back to the game. After bishop c3 pawn takes, black plays a bit more solidly, putting the pawn on c6 and planning to develop the bishop on a6. C takes d5, right in time and a good prophylactical move. Why? In case of short castle, black goes with bishop a6, and probably you're wondering, okay, it's going to be the same, I guess, right? Because we can just take the pawn on d5 and kind of what comes next. But I believe black can just take it back with the pawn. And if we try to capture here, knight a6, maybe queen d3, etc., some moves like queen c8 might be there. Knight e4 ideas, some light square weaknesses might occur. Black might be doing okay here. All right, how about c takes d5? And right after c takes d5, we prevent the idea of bishop a6. As you can see, d3 bishop is our main pride in this position, so we need to make sure that we are controlling the whole board, and when the time is right, to press the pawn on c4 as well. So after c takes d5, queen e2, very strong prophylactical move.
By the way, it's very important to be remembered. Very nice positional idea. To take first cd and then to play queen to e2. Great play by white.
Indeed.
Very important. Very, very important. We don't let the bishop to a6. And in case black would do something like a5, so black would still try to get the bishop to a6. Now we have this big pressure on the b6 pawn. So it is just so useful for white to provoke the move a5. So c takes d5, c takes d5, and now then queen e2, avoiding bishop a6 is a great positional idea by white. Yeah, very nice play.
Definitely. And after that, knight goes on c6. How are the knights doing on your lichess, Arkady? Is it fixed?
I can see them. So my glasses, maybe I have some kind of magic glasses, like you would say.
And it made it disappear.
I bought a normal one, yeah. But seems like my glasses make the knights go away.
Okay, I see. After knight c6, short castle, and black goes with knight a5. And here's the situation. Black wants to somehow maintain pressure on the c3 pawn, potentially queen c7 idea. They wouldn't mind putting the bishop here, putting the knight on c4 as well, and we somehow need to activate the pieces. If we don't have the c4 opportunity and our bishop dies on c1, slowly we're going to get worse position. That's why white plays a strong move a4, creating the space and the path to the bishop to jump on a3, challenge this rook on a8 and f8 and activate the pieces shortly. Like goes with rook e8. Really nice one. And the best part of it is that if the knight goes on b3, we can go rook b1, knight c1, rook takes c1, and we would like to go for c4 on the next move, which gives white the advantage. After rook e8,
little better, yeah.
Indeed. After rook e8, white here goes for knight e5, activates the piece, and after knight e4. Here, Arkady, tell us, why did white decide to make the move whatever was played?
Difficult move. It's not an easy move, the next move by white. And as well, it's not so obvious to play a4, rook e8 followed by knight e5. The question would be, okay, all right, why we don't go knight to e5 instantly, no? Like, why actually do we play the move a4? And this is the key idea. So the key idea of this position is actually to combine a4. So we try to provoke black rook to move somewhere. So we have rook e8 being played. Of course, there might be some different move. Then we would think about playing bishop a3. So rook e8. And now that the move that the rook has moved from the f file, we're switching to the attack on the black king because rook is better placed on f8. That's the whole trick, but quite a big trick actually, Georgi. This is a very high level game. To play, for example, a4 followed by knight e5 is very difficult for an average chess player. Very difficult because it makes no sense, no? You play a4, the guy is putting rook to the center, and then you go knight e5. Then why you do that? No, usually we try to combine moves, so the move should make sense. But a4, knight e5, the combo is making not much sense. Knight to e4 played by black, and actually the best defense for black in such cases is to get the knight to d7. So we want to change the knight straight on e5, and here we can see how useful was the move a4 because we're gonna take h7, we're gonna give a check on h5, and we're gonna eat the pawn f7 away. And this position is better for white, in my opinion. So very deep idea, no, Georgi? Like very, very deep idea. Or maybe we don't take h7 actually. Maybe knight takes f7 is even better, yeah, because like that we give just a checkmate straight, yeah. Okay, this is even better. So in any case, it's very useful that the rook is on e8, but it's useful not for black, but for white, because we have the move knight e5, which usually would be countered by knight d7, but currently knight to d7 is not possible because f7 and h7 are hanging with a rook on f8 for black. It would be possible now to play knight d7, but obviously black will never play the move rook f8, and we have always the move bishop a3. That's why so important the combination of a4 and knight to e5. Like fantastic play, very, very high level, but not easy to understand this kind of things. So knight e4, and obviously we will never take the knight, so this is not the point of Ivanchuk. f3, strong move, easy move, but maybe white had even a better option, and this better option, again, a very difficult move. It has to play queen c2 first. Would have been even maybe stronger, but it's so difficult to say, and it's difficult to decide if you play queen c2 or you go with a move f3. Now the idea might be to play c4 next, but again, this is so high level chess that it's so difficult to say. Bishop a3, bishop on b7, and we continue with bishop takes d6. Brilliant positional decision. Georgi, look at that. Could you play like this? Take and f4.
If I want to play f4, yes, for sure. Because as I know, when the knight ends up on e4 and this bishop is shut it down, the attack is quite difficult to pull off. So
Yes.
that's why I would go for it. And
But would you think that attack is dangerous?
no, I don't think so.
I think it's so difficult to play a move like bishop takes d6 because we have a beautiful bishop on a3. So I think it would be much more typical to say, all right, we keep the bishop on b4, for example, or we play a move like rook c1. Let's see what happens, no, Georgi?
Yeah,
What do
that
you think?
actually makes a bit more sense to me. But on the other hand, when I see no knight standing on f6, and after, let's say, bishop d6, queen d6, f4, there are opportunities of bishop h7, queen h5, all these things, I might have tried. But I need to see how black responds exactly. If I see that black's best shot is to play g6 to stabilize, maybe I would have tried, because almost no piece is standing near the enemy's king.
Okay.
But on the other hand, it's really difficult to say no to the comfort zone. But you know what I'm thinking? Maybe black wants to play f6 at some point. And if the knight gets kicked out and black manages to cement the knight on c4 later, I might regret some decisions. That's what I'm thinking.
Maybe, but on the other hand, I'm gonna push the move e4. So again, very complex position in my opinion. Very,
Yes,
very
indeed.
complex. Hard to tell what is good and what is bad. But in any case, we see a great idea by white to take and to play f4. Once again, knight on a5, like in King's Indian. Knight is out of the game. That's why we try to push. And we have, of course, the direct threat. So still bishop takes h7, followed by queen h5, and take on f7 is coming next. So very, very nice. Black is defending with the move g6. And you might think, all right, what's next? Georgi, what's next?
Well, thinking actually right now, right after g6, how can white proceed further? Probably some moves which come in mind is something like h4, h5, but the question is, do we have enough time for it? Because black will be happy to play f6 on the next move. Some calculation will be required if we're okay to make a sacrifice. But I really like how white has played this queen g4. And thing is that there will not be any f6 business. White made it very clear that I'm coming after your king. I'm gonna mate you. h4, h5 will be on the way. When the time is right, maybe knight g6 or bishop g6 sacrifice. But oddly enough, what I see here is that f5 is actually a threat, which might be okay because we're pinning all the pawns. So black just goes for knight c4. Apparently, it is not the best shot, and maybe playing f5 was better for black, but good luck making such move. It's so difficult. And after knight c4, black is saying that, okay, you know what? I'll try to get rid of this monster knight on e5. Knight e3 is a threat as well. And in case of this trade, maybe some kind of rook c8 from one way or another. And if the pieces will get neutralized, we can't really make a good follow-up. So that's why knight c4 is a good practical option, but Ivanchuk just doesn't care and just puts the queen back on g3 like nothing is happening, protects the pawn on e3, and is waiting for the moment to push f5 as soon as possible. After queen g3, yes, after this, and here, if knight takes on e5, we're going to take it back with the pawn. Then we can try to double up the rook along the f-file. g6 is vulnerable. another pawn is coming into the action. Clearly, white is dominating. Here, black chose to play queen c7, which apparently was a decisive mistake, but it's difficult to suggest any other regular move. I believe black's general idea is no longer to trade off the knight, perhaps to tuck it on this direction to somehow get rid of this piece, but here white takes the knight on c4. You might ask why. This bishop was doing a tremendous job along this diagonal, but the catch is that the concrete variations work out super well for white, and it's time to break through with f5 on the board.
Actually, a lot of positional games are ending up with something very straightforward calculation. So positional advantage is not winning the game. Even if you have the best pieces in the world, still you need to take away something from your opponent. So positional advantage is just helping you to get a chance to win the game. But at some moment, you have to take what you deserve and you have to calculate some line. And yeah, you have to hope that your calculation is just good enough not to make a mistake and to finalize the correct score. So f5, Ivanchuk is pushing for the win. Let's see. Let's see what happens next.
And after f5, one thing I would like to add to that note is that I have seen a lot of games when one of the side tries to play positionally, outplay the opponent, get a fantastic position, but sooner or later this moment really comes where you actually have to put things together and start calculating. Some players are trying to postpone that process as much as possible because they just enjoy the position so much, they don't want to ruin it, and they're just moving the pieces back and forth, hoping that at some point the opponent will make a mistake and it's going to be easy in terms of calculation. Probably to a certain degree you're right, because it's difficult to play in tension, but it's much, much better to not miss any opportunities and go for the calculation whenever the situation requires. So you can't just firmly win by the strategy in most of your games. So after f5, white is ready after e takes f5 to take it back with the rook, and then the f7 pawn is under a lot of fire. We can put the rook here, over there. Many problems along the dark squares too. So black responds with f6, which is quite a good option. Because what else? If the knight sidesteps somewhere back, black would be happy to take e takes f5 and neutralize the position. So of course, it's time for some sacrifices. We asked for it. We went for this f4, f5 idea. Obviously, something should be happening. And white takes the pawn on g6. It's not that rocket science, because the follow-up should be quite clear what white wants to do next. In case of h takes g6, we can take it back with the queen, grab the pawn on f6 as well, and white will be simply winning with some extra pawns on the board. So after f takes g6, f takes c5. And here is the main calculation. If we take on h7, yes.
Not so easy at all. No?
Not anymore, actually, because this part, to look at this f5, f takes g6, yes, you will get that far. But what's next? Okay, you see a g takes h7 looks cool, no one is going to take it, king will go on h8 and that's it. Maybe we can try rook f7? Yes, that definitely could be the move which you consider. But what happens after queen c6? It feels like we're kind of running out of steam, because if we take on h7, there we need to calculate if king f7 and the king escaping. If we take with the rook on h7, how do we bring the pieces in action later? Because also this bishop and queen in combination is attacking the pawn on g2, so we've got to be quite careful. And
Actually,
here I want you to give us the comments about what happened next.
Amazing combination, yeah. It is a finishing line, but what a beautiful line. Not so easy to see that, no? Georgi, what do you think? You would be capable of finding that, or you think rather not?
I'm not sure, but if I do, I need a lot of time for that, no doubt.
How much time you think you would need to find the final tactical blow of Ivanchuk?
I would say roughly 30 minutes, probably, maybe a bit more.
So much? 30 is a lot.
Yeah, I don't think I'll be able to find it that fast, because I will be doubting myself quite a lot there. because in this position, when I see, if I know that this is the correct move,
Yes.
then maybe
Then
it
you
will
find
take
it,
me shorter time. But
Okay.
there I'm calculating, why not knight g4, let's say. And then
Okay.
these going there. And this thinking process will be back in my mind. But if I know like all in, this should be the main way to go, then probably maybe 20 minutes. I don't think it will take me less, almost no way.
Okay, interesting. So rook f7, we have the move queen c6, white to move, and white can finish the game in a very beautiful way. Maybe you can write your comments in the chat. Otherwise, of course, please subscribe, like, in case you enjoy our educational content. We are very close to 200 subscribers. Sounds not so much, but it's a start. Let's see if somebody can find the winning calculation now.
And meanwhile, we are planning to get to 200. How many do we have left? Just 5 subscribers left. Ladies and gentlemen, just click
Very
that
close.
button. And if you click that, some magic things are coming up. Actually, YouTube has a nice animation. YouTube really has a nice animation. Just click it and check out your rating 1 week later. This is the formula, actually, which we figured out. And now it's time to share to wide audience. Go for it. Just click it.
Can you imagine how many clicks Georgi made to get to 2,450? He subscribed to over 5,000 different channels, at least, no?
Yes, imagine. It's a hustle, but it's worth it.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
Oh,
So
we have some recommendations. Here we go.
Almost correct. Yes, almost correct answer in the chat. There can be some improvement, but yes, very good answer in the chat. Let's take a look together at this final beautiful combination. So we start with the move g takes h7. Georgi, good start, no?
Definitely.
King f7, what else? In case
Only.
king h8, only move. Okay, so only move. By the way, now my mouse broke. What is that?
Oh boy.
Knight's gone. Mouse doesn't move.
Here we go.
Okay, now I'm back, yeah.
Back.
Okay, so king takes f7 only. Rook f1. King e7 only. And here comes the key move of this puzzle. No, it is not Tarash. This is Ivanchuk against Van Gogh. So, h8 queen, decisive intermediate move. Rook has to take, otherwise black is just queen down. So, we give a check. King d6 is forced because obviously black cannot go to the last rank. We're gonna take the rook and then we're gonna mate. So, let's look at this beautiful mate all together. Georgi, how would you feel with a black color here to get mated like that? Queen g7. If queen d7, rook f7, we're gonna win the queen.
Yes. Even right away, rook f7 might be really.
Yeah, rook f7, of course.
Much, yes,
of course, rook f7.
Both of them.
Obviously.
Here, when your opponent has like options how to beat you, it's not a good sign actually at all. Maybe it's time to just resign at this point, like when they can just pick any piece and they have the way to finish it. Come on.
It's difficult to go wrong, yeah. Indeed. Yes. That's correct. That's correct. So we have king d6 in the game, and here the final blow, because to take with the queen might be not enough to win the game. The king goes back, and now we have this perpetual check situation because of queen takes g2 is coming next. So for example, rook f7, not enough to win the game because black can simply take on g2, and black is a full rook up. So this will be bad news. After the move king on d6, white is winning by taking on e5, and what a beautiful mate in the center of the board. So Wojtaszek just resigned. He didn't want to get humiliated. So king on d5, rook d1, king e4, rook d4. Take a look at that.
Oh,
Wow.
that's amazing.
That's
By the way,
beautiful, no?
looking at it right now, at this variation, I would cut my time down to 10 minutes, maybe, actually. I think I could find it in 10.
Okay.
Maybe 20 was too much looking at it. It's quite beautiful, but it's very
Exaggeration.
forced. It's very
Yes,
forced.
yes.
That's the
It's
thing.
very forced, but very, very beautiful. Yeah.
Mhm.
What a win. What a win. First, amazing positional play by Ivanchuk with this a4, provoking rook e8, and then getting this knight e5. So,
Always indeed.
very, very beautiful. And
And
then,
about Ivanchuk also. Remember what I said that he was number one? No, actually, he was number two 3 times. In 1991, 92, and in 2007 in October as well, apparently. So had wrong information on that.
yes, this is possible, yeah. Because Kasparov dominated in the 90s, and then you had Kramnik and Anand, yeah, who been very dominant. And then, of course, Magnus. So difficult. But actually, there have been many players taking the second spot, yeah. So we had Aronian taking second spot. I think Mamidyarov was second for some time. Even Grishuk, I think, was second for some time.
Yes.
Caruana, of course, Nakamura, etc. So a lot of players had the second spot, but yeah, to be the best, not easy. Not
Curious
easy.
now if among all players currently Kasparov has the highest rating. I know it's inactive, but what was the rating he stopped playing?
I think Magnus had the top, the higher top.
No, that yes, but just currently, who has the higher one? I'm not sure exactly. But Magnus, who, as I remember, had the live rating of 2889.
Yeah, something like that. Unbelievable. Yeah, very
Just,
close to 2900.
and by the way, in Blitz, he had 2991. I like, come on, Arkady, I have a question now. So
Yeah.
imagine you're playing against him, 2991, you have slightly worse position, but you understood you have the opportunity to make a draw there. But if he wins against you, he's going to cross 3000. Let's say. And it doesn't really, it's like a regular city. What would you do?
I would not care about that at all, Georgi.
Because you would think that he will
Not
make it
even-
in any case.
No, but I just never think about this kind of things.
But because he was too close, he had the similar occasion. And I believe he lost against Duda. A completely winning position, 3 away. And then Duda mentioned it in his interview that I really apologize to ruin that historical, borderline of 3000, but what to do? He said, just playing my own
Okay,
game.
but I think 2900 is also quite historical, so.
But
It's okay.
3000
Magnus-
sounds different, actually. 3000.
Yeah,
That's like
3 and many zeros. All right, Georgi. So I think that was quite a nice and educational stream, no? All in all, I think
yes,
we
indeed.
took a look at a lot of beautiful positions, great ideas, and yeah, we hope that spectators enjoyed the stream. What else? What else can we say for today, Georgi? Your last words, and what do you think should we do tomorrow?
I think the puzzles people might be more into that. They do like to solve the puzzles, like giving some tasks and so on, and might be interesting for them to tune in. This strategy end game, but end games. Did we do that?
I
We
think
did
no.
not
Yeah, let's
work
do
on
some
end
end
games.
tomorrow.
End games will
Yes.
be better, I think. So we haven't done it.
So tomorrow we're gonna do some end games. We hope to see you. We hope you tell your friends, give us a like in case you enjoyed, in case you learned something, subscribe for sure. And yes, maybe see you tomorrow. I will be as well commenting on live on the World Cup, so you can tune in. Let's see what is gonna happen at the World Cup. Otherwise, we wish you a great evening. We wish you to win a lot of chess games, and we hope you learned something today. All the best, and eventually, till tomorrow, Georgi.
All set. See you around, everyone. Take care. Till tomorrow. Bye
Thank
bye.
you. Bye.